It is my privilege to welcome our guest today. She teaches in the Graduate Studies program of our School of Intercultural Studies. Her recent research is on refugee studies. She's lived all over the world, New Mexico, Virginia, Hawaii, California, and 8 years in China as well. You know, we became Facebook friends, and if I'm honest, I look at her Facebook feed and I'm like, and she's only been here for 2 years, right? And I'm like, wow, like, she has a lot more friends than I do. And I'm always like, oh, she develops really meaningful relationships. So we're going to talk about the art of friendships with her today. Please help me welcome Dr. Jamie Sanchez.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, Dr. Sanchez, I love to hear about your friendship journey and how you arrived to where you are today.
Thanks, Mike. Let me start by just saying thank you for allowing me to be here. This is a great honor. You mentioned I work with graduate students, and I also teach mostly online. And so any opportunities I get to interface with you, even though right now you're a black sea of nothing because of the lights, I'm really honored to do so. So thank you. Well, my friendship journey really has some parallels to many of yours, right? It's through experience. I have learned a lot through my years in the different places that I've lived, being faced with having to create or cultivate a community wherever I am. And I've learned a lot by failing in friendship and failing forward in so many ways. But as I was reflecting and preparing for this, 3 books came to mind that I kind of happened upon. As an undergrad, like many of you here today, I read a book called The Friendships of Women. And I learned 2 things in that book. One is that friendships change over time. They transition, right? The friendships of our childhood look much different than the friendships of our college years. And the friendships you're developing now may continue, and still they're going to develop over time. The other thing that she talks about in that book is that there's potential pitfalls to friendship, especially when the friendships become so dependent on one another. And friendships, some of those relationships, in fact, it might be the only type of relationship that we get to experience where there's always room at the table for other friends, right? Not that there's not exclusive times with your friends or that you don't have best friends, but there's always room for other people. And then I read a book called Sacred Companions by David Benner. In fact, I brought it here. And I was living overseas and continuing to grow in my young professional career. And this book really talks about how friendship creates a space, a safe space. It's a type of hospitality in which another person can come and be themselves. And then it's out of that all sorts of things are developed. Mutuality, accompaniment, trust, emotional intimacy, and love, which leads me to the next book, is The Fourloves by C.S. Lewis. And I hear a whoop out there. It's a great book. And in it, he lays down the premise that friendship is as important as the other relationships that we get to experience. In fact, he says that some people view friendship as kind of a side dish. And he says, no, friendship is a main course in life's banquet. And I love that analogy and the picture that we get of feasting with people on the relationship.
No, I'd love for you to talk about that more with the 4 loves, right? You said friendship is a main dish. You know, Valentine's Day is around the corner, and sometimes one type of love is the main dish, if I could be so honest. I'd love for you to unpack what friendship might look like then.
And so, you're right. I mean, we have Valentine's Day coming up, and for a long time, romantic relationship has always been kind of the focus of the human experience. I'm going to turn to C.S. Lewis's words for a bit. He says, romantic love has been, and I quote, stressed and almost exaggerated again and again. But very few modern people think friendship a love of comparable value or even a love at all, right? And he goes on to say that the ancients, talking about Aristotle and Cicero, really valued friendship. Like they thought deeply and wrote deeply about it. But the modern world, by comparison, ignores it. When I read that and started thinking about that, that kind of got me on my intentional journey towards thinking about friendship. About how it really has led to a friendship crisis. In fact, if you Google friendship crisis, how to make friends as adults, friendship crisis in the church, it is all over the literature. In popular literature, in scholarly literature, and blogs. People want to know how to go about doing this. And it also is telling that people are looking for community, whatever that might mean to people.
I'd love to hear about more the intentional side of this. Okay, so what kind of skills then do I need to develop to be a good friend and become a good friend?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a fallible person, so anything I share is just based on my experiences. And a few other things. Friendships look different with different people because there's different people involved, right? There's not just a cookie cutter type of friendship.
Yeah.
The other thing is that there's not a formula, right? You don't do this plus this equals good friend. And we've always got to be remembering that we're walking in a space of grace, that it is by God's grace, and he's always working in us, through us, around us in order to work in our lives. And some of the ways he works in our lives is through friendships.
Yeah.
With that said, I have a few thoughts.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
You know, I bet most everyone in this room at one point has said, but nobody invites me. I wish I was included.
Yeah.
If I would have gone if I had known.
I say that all the time.
Right, so have I. I have said that before. And it's a valid thing to want to be included. It's a valid feeling. But I don't think it's good to stay there, right? And so the counter to that is to be a risk taker, to initiate with other people. And the risk is rejection, right? What if I say to somebody, hey, you want to grab coffee or whatever it is you might want to do?
Yeah.
And they forget to text you back or politely decline through evasion or whatever, right?
Right.
And that's happened. That's happened to me since I've been here. So as an encouragement, I know how you feel. And as a discouragement, it doesn't change as you get older. People are people. So there's the risk. There's a risk in being rejected. But what about the other side of the coin? What if it turns into a great friendship that's life-giving and encouraging and mutual?
Yeah.
Then the question is the risk worth it?
Right.
And I think it is, right? And so I think Luke has a very simple principle on this. And we all know it from Luke 6, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. Be a risk taker. The second thing is be available. All of us left some place to come to where we are. And in a perfect world, I would have packed all of my friends along in every season of life, and we would all be here hanging out together. But that's just not the way it works, right? Now, I still value those friendships from across my different seasons of life, and I still maintain those friendships. But the reality is we need people here, where we are in the physical. And that takes a lot of time. And so being available and putting in the time is one way to do that. And social media is a great way to connect with people, but the depth of relationship I think we're all looking for doesn't come only through text-laden conversations.
That's right.
They have to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
And so I think, if we can go off a little bit on this point here, part of your undergrad experience here is developing a face-to-face social network. It should be part of your schedule and what you're doing, not just classes. That's not the only reason you're here, although it's an important reason. Then the third thing I would say is to be kind. I couldn't come up with another B. Be a risk taker, be available, and then so I just added be kind. I'm sorry, it's semi-cheesy. What I mean there, though, is to be interested in other people, ask questions, follow-up questions. Friendships involve at least two people, often more, and they shouldn't be self-focused only. There are times when that's necessary, but they should be about the other person and always pointing each other to Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? And so a few verses from that is iron sharpens iron, right? As iron sharpens iron, another person sharpens another. Encourage one another. Bear one another's burdens, which points to the fact that friendship takes grit.
Absolutely.
Especially through the long seasons of friendship.
All right, so we talked about skills, okay?
Yeah.
So what are some practical steps then that we might do in our dorm rooms, in our churches, in just the community at large? What are some steps that we might do to practice this?
Yeah. Sometimes it becomes so overbearing, like I have to create this huge space in my life in order for this to happen.
Yeah.
Really, just do what you're already doing and bring somebody along, right? Are you eating at the caf? Invite somebody in your dorm to go eat at the caf with you. Are you playing Ultimate Frisbee in a league that I've heard is here but haven't been invited to yet?
She wants to be invited, by the way. Invite her.
Then bring people along with you. Do what you're already doing. It's life on life. And we talk about life on life discipleship all the time. And this is a part of that life on life accompaniment.
Yeah.
But there's practical things too.
Yeah.
Put it in your schedule. I'm going to do this. Make it a goal one semester to organize some sort of fun event. If you're not from this area, like I am not from this area, then there's a list of things that you want to accomplish outside, right? There's concerts, there's a Hollywood Bowl, there's hikes. So create events to do that in. But that all involves time, initiation, and being interested in what other people might want to do.
Definitely. Okay, so I got one last question.
Oh,
okay?
yay.
What do you think about cross-gender friendships, and how do we do that well?
I'm so glad that you asked a really hard question publicly in front of strangers, and it's being video recorded. This is my favorite.
I'm glad you feel so comfortable here.
Actually, we talked about this. So my question back to that, what do I think about it? Really, I think the question is it okay in some ways? That's what people wrestle with. My question back is, how do you define friendship? Remember that friendship looks different with different people. That might be relevant here. And how do you view the other person of the opposite sex or opposite gender? I think Noreen last week talked about friendship, marriage, dating, and then pre-dating friendships, right, to go backwards. And I think if we're talking just about marriage, that marriages have an element of friendship to them. But not all friendships end up in marriage, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not an exact...
They're following your logic.
Right, you got that,
yeah.
right? And so not all friendships are going to be this pre-romantic friendship, especially we're talking cross-gender. So to answer it directly, some of my dearest friends are opposite sex men, right? In fact, I leave directly after this podcast to fly somewhere to celebrate a guy's huge birthday party. His wife has organized it. It's going to be a fantastic thing where friends are coming in. Right, and when I was taking this job at Biola, you can bet that I called and emailed a lot of people, including men in my life that could speak into this, because I wanted their perspective. And C.S. Lewis talks about this. He says, sure, in a world where women only interacted with women and men only interacted with men, maybe we wouldn't address this question. But the reality is we live in worlds, gratefully, where we get to interact with a variety of people. And as such, relationships can be developed out of those interactions.
All right, Jamie, ready to answer some questions?
I am.
All right, here is our first question. Can you tell us about a friendship that failed or one you had to fight for? What does that look like? When did you know to give it up?
Yeah, that's an important question, right? Because in an ideal world, everyone would get along all the time. But unfortunately, maybe conflict happens. And actually, there's different reasons why friendships might end.
Yeah.
One is just transition. But I think what the person is asking is a conflict where it just couldn't work out.
Right.
And that's super painful.
Yeah.
Right? My advice to this is out of Romans, right? Whatever, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. So whatever you can do to work it out, work it out. Now, there are some times when it just ends, but I don't really have a timeline where you tried this, this, this. It just may be best to kind of step away, but not break up or say we're never talking again. You don't want that kind of loose ends out there, right? We are meant to be reconciled to everyone, right? That's why Jesus came. Reconciliation is key to continue developing good relationships.
Yeah.
Now, that's not easy. It's just not. And what that means is forgiveness, humility, and sometimes just going, okay, we just don't agree, but for the sake of the friendship, we'll move past that.
Right. I mean, there's different kinds of friendships too. Some
Yep.
we'll watch football together.
Right.
Some we're gonna get a little bit deeper, and
Yep.
some we get a little bit deeper. So maybe this friend is we'll just watch football together kind
Right.
of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another question. Okay. How can we build new friendships while not giving up on our old friendships back home?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, right? The friendships back home, and when you leave here, the friendships here and go into a new season are all valid, and they're important. And they're going to look different in some ways. The amount of time spent together looks different, although technology gives us this false sense of deep intimacy because we're seeing people's pictures or we can FaceTime.
Yeah.
Right, and that's all good. And at the same time, you have to remember that there's still a transition in that. So I think do what you need to do to keep connected with friends from home, but don't do it to the exclusion of being present here. Think about the people that you know. When you walk around the campus and ask yourself, who does God have for me here in friendship? It's going to be more than one person, a group of people. And think of them as treasures not yet mined in your Biola experience. I promise, you're going to walk away from this time with some intention and by God's grace, with some relationships that will carry you throughout life. In fact, the trip that I mentioned earlier, these are friends from college, from just exactly your age now. And it has been, 4 years since I graduated my undergrad, something like that. And over those seasons of time, we have maintained close friendship, even though I don't get to see them all the time.
Great. Thank you. Here is a tweet from Sam, and she asks, how have you navigated some of the struggles that come with intercultural friendships?
Oh, that's a great question.
She's a great question asker.
Well, way to go, Sam. The way people be, right, our sense of being, differs by worldview, nationality, cultural perspectives, gender. It's just on and on and on and on.
Right.
So whether or not it's a specifically intercultural relationship, it's good to remember that another person might have different preferences, boundaries, likes, whatever it may be. And it's just about getting to know one another.
Yeah.
And sometimes expressing, hey, I'd like this out of the friendship, or yielding to what they may like.
Yeah.
Right? But it's about being other-focused, right? Asking
right.
questions, getting to know people, and not putting people in a box. Because you can take two people from the exact same place, and they're going to be differently because they're people.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like what you said earlier. It's not just taking from the other person, but being able to understand who that other person is so I could interact better with that other person.
Right.
Great.
Yep,
okay.
absolutely.
Here's another question. Okay, how do you love friends well who have hurt you?
Yeah. I mean, it's the kind of basic principle of forgiving and remembering that you forgave them and not carrying it into the next conversation or next event or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that's not to say that all hurts are the same.
Right.
Some might be a small slight, some might be a deep wound that involves a discussion. And so I don't know exactly where this person's coming from on that, but deep wounds also must be forgiven, and that might take other people coming alongside the person or the friendship to help understand how to navigate maybe some of the complexities there.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yep.
Here's another question. How do you know where to draw the line on opposite gender relationships with close friends when entering a new relationship romantically with the opposite sex?
Wow, it's quite a long question. Draw what line?
They text really fast. It's just like, you know?
Siri. What line? That's what I'm wondering, right? So is it this friendship completely changes? Because if it was just a friendship and the way you're interacting with a friendship, it's going to look different than a romantic relationship. It just looks radically different. And so the question there is, what was this original friendship, right?
Yeah.
And if it's up to the person that you're dating and that person has some questions, that's fair, right? Because now you've entered in a different kind of relationship with them. And there may be some communication or conversations. But when you enter dating relationships, do not drop your other friends, right?
Wisdom right
do
there.
Do not just consume yourself in one person, whether it's your friend or anybody else. Leave room for other people.
Yeah.
Ask anybody who's married, who's been married for a number of years, and ask them if they still value friendships either as a couple or individually. And I promise almost 100% of them will say yes, because friendships add value to life.
I will say yes.
Okay.
Okay, here's another question. Okay?
Football.
How do you know, or here's another question. Okay, especially when caught up in the honeymoon phase of a new romantic relationship, how should one balance time between partner and friends?
Yeah, so this goes back a little bit to the other question, right? And it really is up to the person and the other people involved. So I don't really have much more to add to this except for keep maintaining other relationships as well. And that's going to change over time, especially when you're at the beginning, the honeymoon phase of a new romantic relationship, which takes a lot of time, I guess, is this what this person is saying, right? So.
Okay. Here's another question. Okay, I am an introvert, and it is difficult for me to maintain deeper relationships because I get easily drained around people. What can I do to help this issue.
Yeah, this is fair, right? We have so many different types of being, like I said, different personalities. You have extroverts who are just out all the time. They just feed off of the energy that people give them. And then you have introverts who might need more time to regroup. Know yourself well, and your rhythm of life might look different than somebody else's. Don't make the comparison, right? Know what it works for you. Now, if you find yourself in a friendship with a super extreme extrovert, they might need to understand over time as getting to know one another what space looks like for you. And that's fair. Do what's good, do what works for you.
Right, okay, great. Here's another question. How important would you say it is to have a best friend? Is it better to have one best friend versus 3 good friends?
Well, we get into the and or way of thinking, right? And I think when the questions are this or that, the best answer is maybe both, right? Why can't you have a number of friends? I think having a close friend or group of friends that know you well, that know your struggles, know your hopes, know your dreams, know your faults, is really important, right? And so I really value best friends or close group of friends. And I have a dear, dear friend that I've known for bajillions of years. And I have also added friends along the way that also know me well, right? So it's not one or the other. I think adding is fine.
Great, okay. You see intimacy in ladies' friendships, but almost never in guys. They agree, I think, right? Okay, why? What should the latter look like?
Yeah, why? Mike?
You know, you're supposed to answer. I'm supposed to ask the questions.
I think that by and large is true, but I bet you, now I have not done research on cross-gender relationships and the disparity and differences between the two.
Yeah.
I think in general that this is probably true. And I think in general that men enjoy intimacy, emotional intimacy and friendship just as much as women do, but it just may look different.
We do.
Yeah, I mean, I really do, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's guys' times, it's to hang out. And we don't know what's discussed there, but I'm guessing it's not just one particular thing, right? It's how are you doing being a new father? What's that like, right?
Yeah.
And it changes over time. But what should that look like? I think asking questions, getting to know each other, getting some time alone. Maybe that's a risk-taking move you need to make.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Putting yourself out there and going, hey, let's visit. I mean, it's a little awkward now that I see it all set up, right? Hey, let's get together and start talking. And yet, I bet it will be life-giving and some good times will come out of that.
Yeah, I just want to second that. It's hard for us to take risks sometimes because it's this vulnerability piece that we're just not that good at sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and so the things that we're not good at, if we practice, we get better.
Yeah.
Right? And so I agree. There are things that I am not good at, that I may never be really good at. You know what's surprising to people, especially people in this season of life, is that I am not a naturally relational person. I am a task-oriented, get it done, up at 5, go through my emails, and get it done person.
Yeah.
But I have come to value people and the role that they play in my life, and hopefully the way that I can bless them. And so I have made time for that, right? And so if we're not a risk taker and we're not good at it, then the way to become good at it is to practice it in some ways.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, here's another question. I have 2 friends that pretty much hate each other.
Ouch.
Okay? Is it toxic to be in this situation? Do you have any recommendations to best love them both?
Man, that is hard, right? Why do they hate each other? Right? That's not gonna fly. We gotta figure out, it is toxic to be stuck in between, right? That's not fair to you, whoever this person is.
Right.
And you might care for both of them, and whatever is between them just doesn't work out. But they gotta figure that out. And the only 2 people that can make that happen is those 2, maybe with some wisdom coming alongside them. I don't know that this person's gonna fix that situation, and even more importantly, it's not our job to fix people.
Great. Here's another question for us. A good friend of mine has started to adopt character traits that are harmful to our relationship. We've talked about it, but they're unwilling to change. Our friendship is starting to fade. What should I do?
adopt character traits, it sounds like it's harmful things, right, to the person. I don't know what that is. Again, we can't make people change. We're meant to love one another. We're meant to be in relationship and reconcile. But there are some times when a pause or a space and to let people kind of work through what they're working out is necessary. It doesn't mean you end it. It doesn't mean you're not available when they need you to be available. But it means that you don't allow your life to follow the trajectory of whatever path they're on. You have what is before you and what God has called you to. And it's important to stay on that. And healthy friendships push you towards that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, here's another question. How are ways can we make friends, okay, or at least be friendly with those that think differently than us? I feel that at Biola we are encouraged to make these types of relationships, but I do not know exactly how to do so.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we are encouraged here to really get into conversations with people who think differently. And the thing is, we might be assuming that everyone around us, especially if we're all the same year or all the same major, right? We have these assumptions that we all think the same. But really we don't.
Right.
You just start getting in conversation, you find, oh, that's an interesting perspective on that topic, or, oh, actually I come at it this way. And I think that just having conversations and understanding, I think Tim Muehlhoff calls it perspective taking, right? Coming from the other perspective and letting that come up in the friendship.
Right, great. Well, Jamie, there's a last question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, what are some of the biblical principles that help shape and develop your thoughts for today?
Yeah. One of the verses that I stumbled upon years ago regarding friendship, or has come to mean something to me about friendship, is Proverbs 11:25. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Much of what we're looking for comes by doing that for other people, right? Connection, accompaniment, companions for the journey. The old adage is the way to have a friend is to be a friend, right? But I also want to share two quotes. One from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who writes in Life Together. It is easily forgotten that fellowship with others is a gift of grace. Therefore, those who have had the privilege of living a common Christian life with others, let those who have had the privilege praise God on their knees and declare that it is grace, only grace, that we're allowed to live in community with one another, right? It is deep friendships are evidence of God's love for you and for another person. David Benner says, spiritual friends help us most when they make clear that their job is to point the way, not lead the way. And the way, capital W, that they should point is to Jesus. There's always that element there, right? Jesus should be a part of our conversation.
Biola University prepares Christians to think biblically about everything, from science to business to education and the arts. Learn more at biola.edu.